Tonight's presentation begins, Mayor, with the Alliance for National and Community Resilience. The benchmarking presentation will be presented by our Public Works Director, Albert Carmen, and a group of colleagues that will introduce themselves. Mr. Carmen, if you would, please.
Hello, Mayor. Let me get my presentation started. Are you seeing the presentation?
We are, sir.
And not my notes. Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Commission, and City Manager Albert Carmen, Public Works Director. Tonight, I'm going to start the presentation on the Alliance for National and Community Resiliency, or ANCR, benchmarking process. Joining me during the presentation are two others, Ryan Kolker, who is the Executive Director of ANCR, and Ilya Azaroff, who's with Plus Labs, who's joined me on other sustainability and climate presentations. I'll let them introduce themselves when they come up and tell a little bit more detail about them and their position. That said, Ryan is now going to speak about ANCR before getting into the benchmarking process. So, Ryan?
Great. Thanks so much, Albert, and thank you to the Commission for the opportunity to present to you today. As Albert mentioned, I'm Ryan Kolker, the Executive Director for the Alliance for National and Community Resilience, which is a 501c3 national nonprofit organization that brings together the public and private sector to advance community resilience by providing tools that help communities really understand where they are relative to their resilience activities and where there are opportunities to improve. ANCR was established through work of the International Code Council and the U.S. Resiliency Council, with support from partners like Target, DuPont, and others that really recognize the importance of community-level resilience activities. You can go to the next slide.
Yeah. I'm going to take this one, Brian. It's this back to Albert. A little background. In December 2020, the city staff, at the request of Ilya, met with ANCR and Ryan regarding the benchmarking program and Oakland Park's participation in the pilot benchmarking process. City staff reviewed the information and agreed to participate and started meeting with ANCR and Plus Labs, Ilya's firm, on a weekly basis in February 2021. City staff involved included Pete Schwartz, Alex Dombach, Rick Buckeye from Planning, and Rick Johnson from Building, Chief K from Fire, and Shannon Vezina from PIO and the City Manager's Office. I coordinated the activities of Public Works and the rest of the information for the city staff. City staff and Plus Labs submitted the city's final scorecard to ANCR in October 2021, and then ANCR completed their final review in December 2021. And now Ryan's going to talk to you about go over the benchmarking process and the city scoring.
Great, thanks, Albert. As the Commission knows, there are many things that go on within a community that really create an environment that makes cities and communities great places to live and work. Those functions also influence a community's resilience. And so ANCR has identified 19 different community functions that impact the resilience of a community. And we're developing benchmarks for each of those community functions, really recognizing that a community is only as strong as its weakest link. The community resilience benchmarks provide an opportunity for a community to really understand what's going on within each of the individual community functions, but also really provides a holistic vision across the community on where investments are being made, where projects are underway, and really provide a vision for what the community can do to understand their current resilience and implement improvements that enhance their resilience even further. The individual benchmarks are developed through the engagement of national level subject matter experts who really understand the nuances within each of the individual community functions and the things that go into assuring that those functions are resilient. If you can go to the next slide. So the Alliance for National and Community Resilience has completed development of the buildings, the housing, and the water benchmark. and as Albert mentioned, we had the pleasure of working with the community to pilot those benchmarks. And working through the process, ANCR is pleased to provide Oakland Park with the following designations: an enhanced designation for buildings, an enhanced designation for housing, and an enhanced designation for water. Oakland Park is only the second community to achieve these designations, and actually the first community to achieve a designation in the water benchmark area. It's also important to note that the levels of benchmark achievement range from emerging to essential to enhanced to exceptional. And so the community has achieved an enhanced rating in each of the benchmark areas that were addressed. In moving forward from the benchmarking process, ANCR sees the benchmarks as an opportunity to support holistic community planning, and then also provide an opportunity to communicate the work that the community is doing and differentiate the activities of the community from those in surrounding communities. This can certainly help support economic development opportunities, grant applications, opportunities for financing, including bond ratings and other opportunities, and really providing an outlet for communicating with city residents on some of the activities that the community has underway. With that, we can go to the next slide. The results of the benchmarking process are really intended to provide a framework for communities to present information and then use that information to develop pathways for more in-depth discussion, priorities, planning, and really inform potential activities moving forward. Go to the next slide.
Yeah.
I think with that, I'll turn it over to Albert to walk through the process.
Yeah, I'm just going to walk through a little quick. We have 3 slides, one on each of the benchmarking processes. So some brief details. And my passion was water, which includes drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater. This benchmark includes 22 requirements, by far the largest of the 3 current benchmarks. One was not applicable to Oakland Park. It is that of the combined sanitary sewer and stormwater system, which is a very good thing that we do not have a combined system. We met all the essential areas on this scorecard. The scorecard, some areas that we should be focusing on, such as a review of our water and sewer distribution and collection system. The last review was completed in 2010 and 2011, just prior to us completing the bid pack projects. Also looking for additional connections to our water system for interconnections with Broward County, and that is in our current CIP program. And then completing our stormwater master plan, which we currently have a draft that staff is reviewing. So those are the 3 areas we wanted to focus in on the water community resilient benchmark. The housing community resilient benchmark met all the essential areas and most of the enhanced areas. The area that the city needs to focus in is long-term emergency housing plan, which is the 8 and 9 on the scorecard. Broward County has led this effort with all the 31 cities in Broward County and has developed a proposed plan for long-term housing recovery after major emergency disaster events, but the plan is yet to be finalized or any implementation strategies identified or developed. So we need to, with the county, we need to look at that. Just important to note that the housing benchmark covers all residential structures in the community, including single family and multifamily structures. The building benchmark covers all occupied structures in the community, whether they're new or existing buildings, both residential and non-residential, commercial, industrial buildings. So the city again met all the essential requirements, focal areas for to look at in the future are currently is the added resiliency and reduce the vulnerabilities for these buildings. Now that I'm kind of giving you a background of what we did with going through the scorecard, Ilya is going to talk about what this means and what we're going to be moving forward with this new benchmarking process and our scorecards.
Great. Thank you, Albert. And good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the Commission. I'm Ilya Azarov. I'm an architect along with my colleague, Eric Jester, and we serve as resilience and sustainability consultants to the City of Oakland Park. I've presented, as Albert said, many times here at the Commission. So these benchmarks, there are several things that we need to be aware of. And the City of Oakland Park should be very proud of these benchmarks that have already been achieved. Oakland Park's leadership, not just in South Florida, but throughout the state and the country, are on display here. Because of this benchmark process and these certifications, these benchmarks that have been received, Albert has already, and the City of Oakland Park has already been represented at the Florida Housing Coalition in the fall, as well as the Southeast Florida Climate Compact, these presentations to expand the agency, as well as display that leadership for other surrounding communities. There is additional benchmarking, as Ryan had mentioned, 19 of them. It is our recommendation that Oakland Park move forward with the next series of benchmarks. What the benchmarks have done for Oakland Park is twofold. One, not just to show where you stand in terms of resilience and give you a path forward, it also allowed for the city and its employees and the community to understand broadly across the different constituencies of government and break down any silos with almost educating oneself about what you have already in process. Ryan mentioned this is a financial tool. Indeed, financial rating systems throughout the world are moving towards resilience. And if your city is resilient, your bond rating, your ability to float or to support projects down the line are increasingly being tied to an understanding of where your resilience benchmarks are. This is one of those systems, and the very few out there, that will allow the city to move forward in that aspect. And now with a sort of a wider lens or a broader picture of where you need to go, we are currently working with Albert and the team to examine the current projects that are underway in the City of Oakland Park, the bond projects, and then take a look at the future of projects coming down the line and how those would enhance or build upon what we've learned about the benchmarks and increase in those capacities, in those benchmarks, to achieve higher designations in the future. So the future planning that is on the horizon is something that is an additional result of this system. And so at the end, I'd like to thank the Commission and thank you, Albert, for allowing us to come forward with this system. I think the future for a resilient, sustainable future is very bright for the City of Oakland Park and everyone in the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ilya, Ryan, and that concludes our presentation. Again, as Ilya said, Mayor, Commission, City Manager, thank us for the opportunity for giving this update. And now all three of us will be available to answer any questions or that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Carbon and company. Before we kick it up here, Mr. Hebert, anything else you wanted to add to?
Thank you, Mayor. I will add that there are a number of items that you are all aware of, some of which are on our agenda this evening, that interface with this exact exercise and look at similar aspects of our city and help us better define where we are and where we're going. So this evening, we've got a recommendation for a next level of review of our housing policies, particularly where affordable housing is concerned. Your next presentation is on your facility bond, which is all about being resilient and providing for the future operational needs of our city, and a number of other projects that we are engaged in, one of which Albert highlighted, which is the Stormwater Master Plan. So it's important for everybody to understand, I think, that within the context of what a city is, that plans are actually the very foundation. And having an understanding of where we are and where we want to head is exactly what this process is all about. So I want to thank Albert for spearheading this. I want to thank Ilya for always being our shepherd and our guide and watching over our shoulders. And I want to commend ANCR for doing something that too many governments have dragged their feet on doing, which is take a look at where you're at and realize where our world is moving to and ask yourself whether or not you're prepared. So thank you, everybody, for your presentations this evening. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to comment. I'll look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. My commissioners? Anybody want to take a go at it?
Thank you, Mayor, and Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you, Mr. Hebert and Albert and Ilya. I saw you a few years ago, Ilya, when you presented. So one day we'll meet in person, and this is very phenomenal to be really the first city to get such great 4 stars, if you will, in the 3 areas. Sounds like ANCR's a gold standard, so we appreciate the collaboration. And you actually read my mind, Mr. Hebert, when you talked about interface, because we have the facilities, the comprehensive plan, and I don't say a smaller, but a more specific on affordable housing. So my only question, because I did pull up, I have not had a chance to look at all the ANCR, I guess it's the ANCR benchmarks. I just pulled them up. It looks like a 24-page document. Would it be helpful? I think this is where you're going, Mr. Hebert, but I'm not positive. And to my colleagues, should we consider at the timing of when we want to, if we do want to adopt these benchmarks, and if we do want to do that prior to what we're supposed to adopt, we're supposed to consider adopting the comprehensive plan, I think tonight, hopefully. But I'm just trying to think of the timing, because if these benchmarks are so important, which I think they are, and this is such a prestigious distinction, not just in its own right, but for future bond ratings and grant opportunities, I'm just wondering how the timing of these pieces. So, Mr. Hebert,
that's an excellent question, Commissioner. Thank you, and I apologize that we have not been clear, but you're absolutely right. How do we now use this? The item that you mentioned that I neglected to mention is an update of our comprehensive plan, which is also a request and recommendation before the Commission for consideration this evening. That process actually engages in an effort to look holistically at all of the elements within our ordinances and our code that deal with planning for the city. And that's exactly why this comes together. These benchmarks will be utilized as a roadmap to help us better obtain the goals that we would like to achieve within each of those areas. And that will be an 18 to 24-month exercise that will take place, that will engage commissioners and stakeholders, community groups over the next 2 years to actually redraft our code provisions and bring those recommendations back to the Commission for consideration. And this will be a tool in assisting us in identifying which areas should we be focusing on improvement to achieve those goals as a team. So thank you for the question.
Sure, thank you. So just as a follow-up, since we have received this terrific, I guess it's a certification, if that's the word, are the benchmarks come with it then? Like, we're certified, so then these are the benchmarks we've met. There, in other words, there's no need, I'm asking, is there a need to formally adopt benchmarks, or is it by resolution, or is that not necessary? Let me ask you, Mr. Duty, it's kind of for both of you, but if we would need to do that.
The ANCR team doesn't require that because they've done their evaluation based on our documentation. So there is no objection to having a formal action by the Commission. We're happy to bring back a resolution, but we generally bring resolutions to your attention when it's a matter of setting policy or when it's a matter of an obligation that is imposed upon us by an outside entity, such as a request to get a grant application submitted. But a resolution is always appreciated, and we would certainly not have any objection. We did not bring a corresponding item this evening because this is a case of first impression formally for you at this meeting, though you've certainly heard about it along the way from us. But we're happy to do that at a future meeting if that's your request, Commissioner.
Okay, I just put it out. I don't know if Mr. Duty, do you think it's necessary, or you're saying that's the commission's determination?
I'm going to defer to the tactful answer of the city manager.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
respectfully, it's not going to have any impact legally,
Okay.
but it will maybe highlight and memorialize these benchmarks if you wish to do so.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. If they scored us hot, we're just hot. Anybody else?
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you to Albert and Ilya and the ANCR representative. I apologize for forgetting your name. But thank you so much for this recognition. But I do want, and for the presentation, I do want to recognize what Commissioner Rosenwald said. But I also how I'm feeling that this is generated is by if on the slide, I think it's the second slide, of social, organizational, and infrastructural items that have happened naturally occurring. They come to us that we work on. I mean, these are things, and I'm not going to say it's just us. I do want to say this is something that staff has done. So I want to recognize staff most of all. You know, they're the ones that get those grants. They're the ones that get that the water action or the climate agreement that we have with Wilton Manors. These just occur like a living, breathing kind of thing that we bring, and you bring it forward. So really, thank you, staff. Thank you for all the work that city attorney does to make these things happen. It's all on. Really is all on staff bringing it forward, and we do the dais. We do come up with ideas, yes, and we do have thoughts and needs of our own, and we do air those, and you do take our guidance, so I appreciate that. But I just want to say, I think that's where this is. It's not really something that we have to formally benchmark or sorry, not benchmark, but formally like put on as a production. It's just this is where we've come, and this is where we can see where we can use some more work, obviously. But we know that we're doing good things because clearly they're being recognized. So thank you, and thank you, staff, most of all.
Vice Mayor Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. Ooh, I'm wearing 2 masks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Hebert. Thank you, Mr. Carbon and staff for having this forward thinking to connect with ANCR so that they can do what they did as far as awarding us with this great accomplishment. And as you said, Mr. Hebert, you know, it's good to know where we are, because if you don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going. So we know now that we're on the right track and we're doing great things. So I think this is phenomenal, and I want to thank staff for all of their efforts. I want to thank ANCR for recognizing the City of Oakland Park. This is huge for us. We're the second city. Is that correct? I think it's phenomenal. So thank you to everyone who's been involved, and we're certainly looking forward to adding more benchmarking to what we have already.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Excuse me. My thoughts are a combination of everybody's thought. This is excellent recognition. We do owe a lot to the folks who put in the time to get this done This is that not so sexy work, Gordon, that people have to, it has to be done, but it's just not that glamorous work. But I want to challenge us to brag a little bit about this, to get it in a presentation form, show our tattoos a little bit, what we got, a little brag book. I think this is phenomenal, and just keeping it here, telling the residents, I know they had a role in it, they played a role in it, to get us, when something like this, not to get us, but when something like this happens, and you're only one of two, and people say, I didn't know that was happening in Oakland Park, it causes people to go, you guys are doing something right. And so I don't want to let this stay. I know Miss Venza, she done asked me for 90 quotes, I think, to write up a story about about this. But I think this ought to be, this whole quarter, something ought to go on this whole quarter, talking about this achievement. However, it comes in, and I asked Mr. Hebert that you give us some forbearance in that. But this is hot news, and I don't want it to stop. Everybody's talking about resilience. Everybody's talking about bonding, your bond rates. This is what our residents deserve to hear back from us, because I remember when we passed the general obligation bond, 2018, I think it was. There was a whole lot of, oh my God, what's going to happen to the money? And to see such responsible effort going into this campaign, to these campaigns, is just amazing to me, that we are putting everything, what's that word y'all like up here, transparent? Yeah, we're putting everything on the table. We're putting it out there. And I want to really make a loud noise about it. I want it to be understood. I want it to be celebrated at every turn that we can, that we have done as a city the most responsible thing with your trust. You gave us the right to pass the bonds, and because of that, and Mr. Thompson, he's over there, he saves us money, and these types of, they meet in the middle, and these types of accolades help us to get greater bond rating. So thank you, Mr. Hebert. Would you give that to your team and let them know how we appreciate it, and we want to celebrate this.
Mayor, thank you. By my nature, I'm not one to shout at the mountaintops. I try to remember humility is a characteristic that I admire in others, and I do the best I can to try to keep that in mind. Having said that, though, and Commissioner Sparks, thank you deeply for your kind comments. None of this is possible without the guidance of thoughtful and conscientious leaders, and you are the leaders. So on your behalf, I am happy to brag about our achievements, and I will include in that bragging rights opportunity the wonderful work of our team, because Albert and his staff and the department heads who worked on this, including Shannon Vesna, our public information officer, will definitely continue to carry this trophy forward and proudly exhibit it wherever and whenever we can. So thank you, Mayor.